Disguised millionaire finds security guard studying on the parking lot floor, and it ends in... Please support the channel by leaving your like and comment, and let's dive into our story. The bitter aroma of cold coffee mingled with the sharp scent of printer ink and paper as the machine churned relentlessly on the 42nd floor of the Sterling & Associates Tower. Victoria Sterling pressed her fingertips against her throbbing temples, feeling the weight of a migraine hammering behind her bloodshot eyes from hours of staring at spreadsheets. The oppressive silence of the pre-dawn hours was broken only by the mechanical hum of air conditioning and the distant rumble of early morning traffic filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows, while Manhattan's lights twinkled like tired stars against the darkness. Victoria Sterling adjusted her Armani blazer for the 10th time that night, watching her distorted reflection in the dark computer screen. At 35, she commanded Sterling & Associates, one of Manhattan's most prestigious business consulting firms, inherited from her father when she turned 26. The office of imported Italian marble and Brazilian mahogany, adorned with original Rothko paintings and handcrafted furniture, stood as a monument to success she had never chosen to build. "Another sleepless night," she whispered to the empty space around her, glancing at her Patek Philippe watch, showing 3:47 in the morning. The financial reports scattered across her glass desk told the brutal story of the past 8 months. Major clients terminating contracts, competitors underbidding their proposals, key employees jumping ship to rival firms. The empire her father, Richard Sterling, had spent 3 decades building was crumbling in her hands like sand through her fingers. Victoria rose from her ergonomic leather chair, feeling her back muscles protest after hours in the same position. Her feet, imprisoned in 12-centimeter Louboutin heels, throbbed with sharp pain. She walked to the panoramic window and pressed her forehead against the cool glass, observing the empty streets 42 stories below. The city slept while she carried the burden of 837 jobs on her shoulders. "Why can't I make this work?" she breathed, her exhale fogging the window. The question echoed in the luxurious silence of the office without answer. Victoria had graduated magna cum laude from Harvard Business School, earned an MBA from Wharton, spoke 6 languages fluently, and had memorized every business theory ever published. But theory differed drastically from practice, and market reality was proving crueler than any textbook had predicted. Her iPhone 15 Pro Max buzzed against the marble surface. A text message from Bradley, her ex-fiancé. "Saw the news about the firm. Good thing we ended things before you lost everything. Take care." Victoria felt her stomach churn. Bradley Worthington III, heir to a banking dynasty, had proposed 2 years ago, but their relationship crumbled when she discovered he was more interested in merging their trust funds than building a life together. His message confirmed her deepest suspicions. People in her social circle only approached her for financial gain. "I need to get out of here," she announced to the empty office. Victoria opened her desk drawer and retrieved dark jeans she kept for emergencies, a simple white cotton blouse, and comfortable sneakers. In the executive bathroom of black Carrara marble, she changed quickly, removing her expensive jewelry and pulling her chestnut hair into a simple ponytail. In the mirror, she observed the transformation. She looked like an ordinary person, someone no one would recognize on the street. 15 minutes later, Victoria walked through the deserted streets of Manhattan's financial district. The crisp, pre-dawn air carried the scent of morning dew mixed with asphalt, blended with the distant aroma of fresh bagels from bakeries already preparing for the day ahead. Her footsteps echoed against the concrete, creating a hypnotic rhythm that calmed her agitated mind. What a relief not to be recognized, she thought, breathing deeply. The streets she knew only from the window of her chauffeur-driven Bentley revealed invisible details. Carefully maintained building gardens, different textures of sidewalk pavement, the nocturnal sounds of the city. Victoria discovered that walking was better therapy than any expensive treatment she had ever tried. After 25 minutes of walking, she reached a more modest neighborhood where small closed shops shared space with middle-class residential buildings. It was then she noticed a faint, yellowish light emanating from the security booth of a modest apartment complex. Curious, she approached with silent steps. Inside the glass booth, a man of approximately 37 years was hunched over a pile of textbooks and notebooks, using a small LED flashlight to illuminate the pages. He wore a navy blue security uniform, had slightly disheveled brown hair, and a few days' stubble that gave him a tired but gentle appearance. His calloused fingers followed the text lines with absolute concentration. Victoria stopped outside the security booth, mesmerized by the scene. The smell of instant coffee escaped through the partially open window, mixed with the aroma of paper and ink from the books. The man murmured words in a low voice, taking notes in a spiral notebook worn at the edges. "Excuse me," Victoria said softly, tapping on the booth window. The man looked up, revealing a kind expression and tired brown eyes. He quickly put away the flashlight and stood up, smoothing his hair with embarrassment. "Good morning, ma'am. Can I help you with something?" he asked, opening a small window in the booth. His voice was deep and welcoming, with a slight Brooklyn accent that indicated working-class origins. Victoria noticed he tried to hide the books behind his body, as if he had been caught doing something wrong. "I was walking and saw the light. Couldn't sleep," Victoria explained, trying to sound casual. "Sorry to bother you, it's just that I rarely see anyone studying at this hour." The man relaxed his shoulders, a shy smile appearing on his lips. "No problem at all, I can't sleep either. I take advantage of the quiet hours to study. I'm Marcus Thompson," he said, extending his hand through the small window. Victoria hesitated for a second before responding. Emma Collins." The lie came naturally, like a protective instinct. Marcus shook her hand gently, his rough fingers contrasting with her soft skin. "Nice to meet you, Emma. Do you live in the neighborhood?" "Not exactly. I work in a nearby office." "And you? How long have you been studying during the night shift?" Marcus scratched his neck, a gesture Victoria perceived as his nervous tick. "About 3 years now. I work from 10 at night to 6 in the morning, so I take advantage of the quieter hours to hit the books. I'm finishing my business administration degree." "Business administration," Victoria perked up. "And what do you plan to do afterward?" Marcus's eyes lit up with genuine passion that Victoria hadn't seen in anyone from her social circle in years. "I want to open a small consulting firm, to help local store owners, restaurant managers, small entrepreneurs, people who have great ideas but don't know how to organize their business properly." Victoria felt something stir in her chest. The simplicity and sincerity of Marcus's dream contrasted dramatically with the cutthroat corporate world she knew. "And how did this idea come about?" she asked, genuinely intrigued. Marcus looked at the books on his desk, a melancholic smile crossing his face. "I worked in marketing at a big corporation a few years back. Had a decent position, good salary, but—" He paused, as if deciding how much to reveal. "My grandmother was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's. I had to leave everything to take care of her." The pre-dawn air seemed to grow heavier. Victoria felt a knot in her stomach, imagining the difficulty of such a decision. My goodness, what a challenging situation. How is she doing? Some days are good, others not so much. It's an emotional roller coaster, but she's my grandmother, She sacrificed everything for me when I was a kid. Now it's my turn. The simplicity with which Marcus spoke about sacrifice made Victoria reconsider all her complaints about inheriting a prosperous company. This man had abandoned a stable career to care for his sick grandmother, yet still found energy to study during the night shift, dreaming of a better future. How do you manage to balance work, studies, and caring for your grandmother? The question came with genuine admiration. Marcus laughed, but there was no bitterness in the sound. "Coffee. Lots of coffee and organization. I work here at night, study during quiet moments, sleep from 7 until noon, Wake up to care for grandma in the afternoon. It's not easy, but it works. Victoria observed the books scattered on the desk. Fundamentals of Business Management, Small Business Operations, Social Entrepreneurship. They were all older editions with yellowed pages and worn covers, but filled with colorful annotations and sticky notes. You have an admirable routine. Are these books from college? Some are, others I buy at used bookstores or borrow from the library. There's not much left over for new books, but knowledge is knowledge, right? Marcus said with a genuine smile. Victoria felt a pang of shame thinking about her private library, with hundreds of expensive business books she had barely touched. May I ask what type of consulting you want to do? What would be your focus? Marcus's eyes lit up again, and he leaned forward, resting his elbows on the booth window. Look, Emma, there are so many talented people around here with incredible ideas, but they don't know where to start. There's Mrs. Rodriguez, who makes the best empanadas in the neighborhood, but only sells to neighbors because she doesn't know how to expand. There's Mike, who's an excellent auto mechanic, but can't organize his shop's finances. And there are dozens of other cases like that. Victoria listened, fascinated. The passion in Marcus's voice was contagious. I imagine it must be fulfilling to help people like that. Exactly. It's not about making millions, you know. It's about giving opportunities to people who have talent, but haven't had the same chances others have had. Marcus's words hit Victoria like a punch to the gut. She had been given every opportunity in the world, top education, connections, financial resources, but was failing miserably. Meanwhile, this man, with limited resources and enormous responsibilities, had clear vision and defined purpose. Do you have any specific projects in mind? She asked, feeling genuine curiosity she hadn't experienced in years. Marcus hesitated for a moment, then pulled a worn notebook from the drawer. Actually, I do. Want to take a look? I promise I won't take too much of your time. Victoria nodded, curious. Marcus opened the notebook, revealing page after page of meticulous notes, hand-drawn charts, and ideas organized with obsessive care. Look at this, he said, pointing to a specific page. I've mapped all the small businesses within a 5-block radius. I identified the main problems: lack of financial control, non-existent marketing, difficulty getting credit, supplier issues. Victoria examined the notes, impressed. Marcus's organization and methodology rivaled any professional consulting firm she knew. And what would your approach be? She asked, truly intrigued by this man's ideas. Accessible consulting. Instead of charging high hourly rates, I'd take a small percentage of revenue increase. That way, I only profit if the client profits too. And I'd offer group workshops to reduce costs. The idea was brilliant. Victoria had never considered business models so centered on client success. That's an interesting approach. Have you tested these ideas in practice? Marcus scratched his neck again, slightly embarrassed. Informally, yes. I've helped some neighbors with finances, given advice to people in the building. The results have been good, but it's all very basic still. Even so, that's more practical experience than many people have. True. What about you, Emma? What kind of work do you do? Victoria felt her stomach tighten. The lie she had told weighed on her conscience, but it was too late to take it back. I'm a consultant too. I work with mid-sized companies, nothing too big. That's cool, so you understand what I'm talking about. It must be rewarding to help businesses grow. It should be, Victoria murmured, more to herself. Marcus looked at her with curiosity, but didn't press. The clock on the booth wall showed 4:20. Wow, how time flies. I don't want to interrupt your studies any longer, Victoria said, though she didn't want to leave. Not at all. It's been great talking to someone who understands the field. I rarely get this opportunity. I enjoyed it too. Maybe, could I stop by again? If it's not a bother. Marcus's smile illuminated his tired face. Of course. I'll be here every night. And who knows, maybe you could give me some consulting advice. It would be valuable to get input from someone experienced. Victoria felt a mix of guilt and excitement. Guilt about the lie, excitement about the prospect of talking again with this extraordinary man. Deal. Until next time, Marcus. See you later, Emma. Have a good week. Victoria walked away from the security booth with slow steps, looking back once before turning the corner. Marcus had already returned to his studies, the small flashlight illuminating his careful annotations. The image was etched in her mind, an ordinary man doing something extraordinary, transforming limitations into opportunities. During the walk back to the office, Victoria reflected on the conversation. For the first time in months, she had met someone who spoke about business with genuine passion, without personal interest or hidden agenda. Marcus's simplicity and integrity contrasted with the artificial complexity of her corporate world. "Who are you, Marcus Thompson?" she whispered into the dawn. Back at the office, Victoria couldn't concentrate on the spreadsheets. Marcus's voice echoed in her mind, his innovative ideas challenging everything she had learned about business consulting. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of genuine professional curiosity. At 6 in the morning, when the sun began painting the sky pink, Victoria finally fell asleep in the leather armchair, dreaming of flashlights and worn notebooks. 3 hours later, she woke with a stiff neck and the insistent sound of her phone. Jessica Martinez, her 30-year-old executive assistant, was on the other end with her usual professional voice. "Good morning, Victoria. Mr. Richard has called 3 times. He wants a meeting at 10 to discuss quarterly numbers. And Goldman Sachs rescheduled for this afternoon." Victoria rubbed her eyes, trying to process the information. The bitter taste in her mouth and the feeling of emotional hangover reminded her of the previous night. Had she dreamed about Marcus? "What time is it, Jessica?" 9:15. "Are you okay? Your voice sounds strange." "I'm fine. Got in too early. Give me 15 minutes. Victoria hung up and rushed to the executive bathroom. In the mirror, she saw a different woman. Disheveled hair, smeared makeup, eyes with an expression she hadn't seen in years. She looked more human. The meeting with Richard Sterling was a predicted disaster. The family patriarch at 67 maintained his haughty posture, even faced with evidence that the company was in free fall. His perfectly styled grey hair and impeccable Brioni suit couldn't hide the worry in his steel blue eyes. "Victoria, these numbers are unacceptable," he said, slapping the leather folder on the conference table. "We lost JP Morgan, Apple cancelled their contract, and now Goldman wants to cut the project scope in half." Victoria stared at the spreadsheets without being able to concentrate. Marcus's words about accessible consulting and client-centered models echoed in her mind. "Dad, maybe the problem isn't just the numbers. Maybe it's our approach." Richard looked at her with surprise. It was rare for Victoria to question the company's traditional methods. What kind of approach? What if we're charging too much? What if our focus is wrong? "Victoria, this company was built serving Fortune 500 companies with premium consulting. We're not going to lower ourselves to compete on price." The word "lower" bothered Victoria. Marcus wasn't lowering himself by dreaming of helping small entrepreneurs. He was elevating his purpose. "I'm not talking about competing on price. I'm talking about rethinking our business model." Richard sighed, running his hand through his grey hair. "Daughter, you're stressed. Why don't you take a vacation? Go to the Hamptons, rest a bit." "I don't need a vacation, Dad. I need perspective." The meeting ended without conclusions, but Victoria left with one certainty: she needed to talk to Marcus again. Throughout the afternoon, she pretended to pay attention to the Goldman Sachs presentation, but her mind was miles away in a small security booth illuminated by a flashlight. The executive's words about cost optimization and scope reduction sounded empty compared to Marcus's genuine passion when talking about helping small businesses. At 6 p.m., Victoria dismissed her driver and decided to walk home. But instead of heading to her penthouse on the Upper East Side, she headed back downtown. Her heart accelerated with each block that brought her closer to the booth where she had met Marcus. The familiar smell of instant coffee and paper guided her to the illuminated booth. Marcus was there, leaning over the same books, but this time wearing reading glasses that gave him an even more studious appearance. "Good evening, Marcus." He looked up, and a genuine smile lit up his face. "Emma, great to see you again. I thought maybe you wouldn't come back." "Duh, why wouldn't I come back?" "I don't know. People like you who work at big offices usually don't have time to chat with building security guards." Victoria felt a stab of guilt. If he knew who she really was. "People like me?" Marcus blushed slightly. "Sorry, I didn't mean to sound judgmental. It's just that you have a certain refined way about you. You speak well, dress well, even in simple clothes you can tell you have education. It's not common around here." Marcus's observation was too perceptive for Victoria's comfort. She needed to change the subject. "I was thinking about our conversation yesterday. Your consulting ideas are really interesting." Marcus's eyes lit up. "Really? You think they could work?" "More than that, I think they're revolutionary." Victoria pulled over a small stool near the booth and sat down, signaling she intended to stay longer. "Tell me more about this results-based fee model." Marcus opened his worn notebook again, carefully turning the pages. "Look here, most consulting firms charge by the hour or project, regardless of results. The client pays but has no guarantee they'll see a return. My idea is different." He pointed to a page full of hand-calculated numbers. "Imagine a restaurant that brings in $20,000 a month. After implementing my suggestions, it starts bringing in $30,000. I charge 10% of the increase, so $1,000 per month for a year. Everyone wins." Victoria did mental calculations. It was a sustainable and fair model, completely different from the predatory approach many traditional consulting firms used. "What if the results don't materialize? Then I don't earn anything. It's an incentive for me to give my best." The simplicity of the logic was brilliant. Victoria had never seen anything like it in the market. "Do you have other practical examples?" Marcus turned a few pages in his notebook. "There's Tony's Deli on the corner. He was only selling sandwiches and some pastries. I suggested he add breakfast combos and gourmet lunch specials. His revenue increased 40% in 2 months. "Did you charge for that consulting?" Marcus laughed, shaking his head. "No, it was just neighbor-to-neighbor conversation, but it showed the ideas work." Victoria was impressed. Marcus had business instincts sharper than executives with MBAs she knew. "How do you identify opportunities? What's your method?" "Observation and conversation. I spend a lot of time on the street, know the business owners, see their problems. Most solutions are simple, but they can't see them because they're too close to the problem." "Give me a specific example." Marcus pointed to a small cafe across the street. "Joe's Coffee there. He complains about no foot traffic during weekdays, only busy on weekends. But I notice on Wednesday evenings lots of college students walk by, coming from the subway. If he offered a student happy hour, coffee and pastry combo at a discount, he could capture that market." The analysis was perfect. Victoria had worked with consultants who charged thousands for less valuable insights. "Have you suggested this to him?" "I have, but he says he doesn't have capital to invest in new inventory." What if he had an investor?" Marcus looked at her with curiosity. "That would be ideal, but what investor would be interested in a small coffee shop?" Victoria felt an idea forming in her mind. "You'd be surprised. There are many investors looking for opportunities in small businesses with growth potential. Do you know someone like that?" "Maybe," Victoria said carefully, "but tell me more about your plans. When do you hope to open your consulting practice?" Marcus sighed, closing the notebook. "It's complicated. I need to finish school first, still have 6 months left. Then I need financial reserves to sustain myself the first few months because I can't quit this job right away. And there's my grandmother's situation." His voice became quieter when mentioning his grandmother. "How is she doing?" "Today was a difficult day. She didn't recognize me this morning. She thought I was my grandfather, who died 10 years ago. Victoria felt her heart clench. That must be very painful. It is, but there are good days too. Last week she helped me make her famous apple pie and told stories about her childhood. It's an emotional roller coaster. Do you take care of her alone? I have a neighbor who helps in the afternoons, Mrs. Washington, but mornings and evenings it's just me. That's why this job is perfect. I can work nights and care for her during the day. Marcus's dedication was admirable. Victoria had never known someone who sacrificed so much for others. What about dating? Family? Marcus laughed bitterly. My ex-fiancée couldn't handle the situation. She said I had to choose between her and my grandmother. Wasn't a difficult choice. She broke up with you because of your grandmother. Yeah. Said she didn't want to marry someone who'd have to take care of a sick relative. She preferred someone with less baggage. Those were her words. Victoria felt anger toward this unknown woman. How could someone be so insensitive? I'm so sorry. That must have been painful. It was liberating, actually. Showed her true character. Imagine if we'd gotten married and I'd discovered later she was only with me for the good times. Marcus's philosophy about relationships was refreshing. In Victoria's world, most relationships were based on convenience and mutual benefit. Don't you feel lonely? Sometimes. But I'd rather be alone than in bad company. And I have my grandmother, even with the disease. In her lucid moments, she's still my best friend. Victoria watched Marcus talk about his grandmother. His eyes shone with genuine love, without traces of self-pity or resentment. Can I ask you a personal question? Of course. Don't you ever regret it, leaving your career to take care of her? Marcus was quiet for several seconds, contemplating the question. Look, Emma, I'll be honest. There are difficult moments, especially when she's very confused. But when I think about the alternative, putting her in a facility, going back to the corporate rat race, making more money but losing time with someone who really matters, I have no doubts. Money can be recovered, lost time cannot. But the words hit Victoria like lightning. She had spent the last 9 years accumulating money and losing time, building a career that didn't fulfill her and neglecting meaningful relationships. That's an interesting perspective. What about you, Emma? Do you have family? Victoria hesitated. How to explain her dysfunctional family without revealing who she was? My father is demanding. He's always expected a lot from me professionally. My mother died when I was a teenager. Sorry about your mother. Thank you. It's hard growing up without a maternal reference. I can imagine. Mine was always my safe harbor. That's why I can't abandon my grandmother now. Victoria envied Marcus's relationship with his grandmother. She and Richard had a purely professional relationship, even as father and daughter. Marcus, can I ask you a business question? Sure. Imagine you were consulting for a large company in crisis. What would be your first recommendation? Marcus rubbed his chin, thoughtful. Depends on the type of crisis. But generally, when a big company is in trouble, it's because they lost connection with the market, got too focused on internal processes, and forgot about the customer. The observation was spot on. Victoria recognized exactly that problem at Sterling and Associates. How would you recover that connection? First, understand what changed in the market. Second, listen to customers, current ones and those you lost. Third, adapt your offering without losing the company's essence. What if the company has always served a very specific niche? There's nothing wrong with having a niche, as long as it's a viable niche. But if the niche is shrinking, it's time to expand or pivot. Victoria was impressed with Marcus's clarity of thought. He didn't use corporate jargon or complex theories, but his analyses were surgical. Did you study these strategies in college? Some, but I learned most through practice. Victoria realized Marcus had practical intelligence that no elite university could teach. His analyses came from real market observation, not abstract theories. Marcus, you mentioned studying some strategies in college, but learning most through practice. Tell me more about that practical experience. Marcus opened his notebook again, flipping to a specific section. When I worked at the marketing company, I had direct contact with clients of various sizes. I saw the same mistakes repeating: companies that grew too fast without structure, others that were too conservative and missed opportunities, some that invested fortunes in advertising without understanding their own product. Victoria leaned forward, fascinated. What was the most common mistake? Lack of financial planning. You have no idea how many companies I saw go under because they couldn't separate personal money from business money, or because they grew without working capital. How would you help a company like that? Marcus turned a page in his notebook, showing a hand-drawn flowchart. First, complete diagnosis, cash flow, cost analysis, profit margin by product. Second, financial education for the partners. Third, gradual implementation of controls. Fourth, monthly follow-up until the company stabilizes. Victoria observed the flowchart. It was more organized and practical than many expensive methodologies her company used. Did you create this methodology? I developed it over time. Testing with small businesses here in the neighborhood, it works well for companies up to 50 employees. What about larger companies? Marcus hesitated, showing a rare moment of insecurity. I've never worked with very large companies. I imagine the principles are the same, but the complexity must be much greater. Victoria smiled. If he knew he was talking to the CEO of one of the country's largest consulting firms. Complexity doesn't always mean efficiency. Sometimes simple solutions are more effective. That's true. At the company where I worked, there were 50-page reports that nobody read. Meanwhile, basic problems went unnoticed. What kind of problems? Salesperson who didn't know how to calculate discounts, manager who didn't understand product margins, director who made decisions based on outdated spreadsheets. Victoria felt a chill. Those same problems existed at Sterling and Associates, disguised by sophisticated reports and elaborate presentations. How did you identify these problems? By talking, not just with management, but with salespeople, operators, customers. The people on the front lines always know where the real problems are. Marcus's approach was the opposite of traditional consulting methodology, which generally ignored lower-level employees. That makes a lot of sense. What about you, Emma? What type of consulting do you do? Victoria felt her stomach tighten. The lie was becoming harder to maintain. I work with organizational restructuring, internal processes, that kind of thing. That sounds interesting. Have you ever managed to save a company from bankruptcy? The question hit Victoria like a punch. She had never saved any company from bankruptcy. In fact, some had gotten worse after her consultations. It's complicated. Clients don't always implement the recommendations. That's frustrating. That's why I like the results-based fee idea. It forces both consultant and client to commit to success. Victoria changed the subject, uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Tell me more about your grandmother. What's it like caring for someone with Alzheimer's? Marcus's face softened. It's like caring for several different people in the same person. Some days, she's the grandmother who raised me, strong, loving, full of stories. Other days, she's a scared child who doesn't understand where she is. And there are days when she's simply not there. Victoria felt tears welling up. It must be emotionally exhausting. It is. But it's also taught me a lot about patience, about valuing small moments. When she has a good day and recognizes me, it's like winning the lottery. How do you spend the good times together? A nostalgic smile appeared on Marcus's face. She loves to cook. On good days, we make old family recipes. She tells stories about my great-grandfather, sings songs from when she was young. It's like having access to a living archive of our family history. Her recipes must be special. They are. She makes a pot roast that's a work of art, and a peach cobbler that melts in your mouth. Victoria realized she didn't know how to cook anything at all. Her diet consisted of expensive takeout or meals at upscale restaurants. Did she teach you to cook? Some basic things. I'm no chef, but I get by. It's comforting to cook for her on difficult days. What kind of difficult days? Marcus was silent for a moment, as if deciding how much to share. Days when she doesn't know who I am. Days when she gets agitated and confused. Days when she cries because she doesn't understand why she can't remember simple things. Victoria felt a lump in her throat. How do you deal with that? By trying to be the constant in her life. Even when she doesn't recognize me, I maintain the routine. Same times for meals, same times for medication, same TV programs. Routine calms her. Marcus's dedication was deeply moving. Victoria had never seen love so pure and selfless. Do you have medical help? Yes, Dr. Williams has been following her for 2 years. He's an excellent neurologist, very patient with her. And we have a physical therapist who comes twice a week. That must be expensive. It is. Most of my salary goes to her treatments, but it's worth every penny. Victoria did mental calculations. A security guard made about $35,000 a year. After medical costs, very little was left for Marcus to live on. How do you manage the expenses? I save where I can. These books are used. I buy clothes on sale, don't have a car. Priorities are her health and my education. Everything else is extra. The simplicity with which Marcus spoke about financial sacrifice contrasted with Victoria's concerns about investment losses and reduced living standards. Don't you miss the things? Like what? I don't know, travel, fine dining, entertainment? Marcus laughed softly. Emma, you can't miss what you never had. My entertainment is studying, talking with neighbors, watching movies with my grandmother on good days. I don't need to spend a lot to be happy. Victoria tried to imagine life without spas, 5-star restaurants, designer clothes, and international travel. It seemed impossible, but Marcus seemed genuinely content. When your consulting practice takes off, what do you plan to do with the money? First, ensure the best possible treatment for my grandmother. Second, maybe rent a small office. Third, create a fund to help other entrepreneurs who don't have startup capital. Again, Marcus was thinking of others before himself. Victoria wondered when was the last time she had done something truly altruistic. A fund for entrepreneurs? Yes, like microcredit, but with consulting included. There are so many good people who just need an opportunity. That's a beautiful idea. It's necessary. The traditional banking system doesn't serve small entrepreneurs. They ask for collateral these people don't have. Victoria knew this problem from an academic standpoint, but Marcus lived it in practice. How would this fund work? Marcus opened a new section of his notebook. Loans from $5,000 to $50,000 with low interest and flexible terms. But with mandatory follow-up, monthly consulting during the first year. The goal isn't just to lend money, but to ensure it's used well. What if someone can't pay back? Renegotiation based on actual payment capacity. The goal is to help, not bankrupt anyone. Victoria was impressed with the sophistication of Marcus's plan. He had thought through every detail. Have you calculated how much would be needed to start this fund? About $500,000 would let us start modestly. 10 initial loans plus reserves for defaults. $500,000 was what Victoria spent annually on clothes and accessories. For Marcus, it represented the possibility of transforming dozens of lives. That's a significant investment. It would be the project of my lifetime, but first I need to make my consulting practice work and save that capital. Victoria looked at her watch, 4:30 in the morning. Again, time had flown by. Goodness, how time flies again. It's true. Talking with you is very stimulating, Emma. You ask questions that make me think. Victoria felt warmth in her chest. When was the last time someone had said talking with her was stimulating? For me, too. Your ideas are truly innovative. Thank you. It means a lot coming from an experienced consultant. Guilt squeezed Victoria's stomach again. Marcus, can I ask you a personal question? Of course. What motivates you to keep going? With so many responsibilities, studies, work, where do you find the energy? Marcus was thoughtful for a moment. You know, Emma, when my grandmother was diagnosed, I thought my life was over. I was 30, had a promising career, was engaged. Suddenly, everything changed. He paused, looking at his hands. But after a few months of caring for her, I realized something. I was living on autopilot, working just to work, making money just to make money, going to get married because it was expected. There was no real purpose. Victoria identified completely with the description. Did caring for her give you purpose? Yes and no. Caring for her gave me unconditional love, but the real purpose came when I started helping neighbors with small business problems. That's when I discovered I have a talent for this and can make a difference in people's lives. That's a powerful discovery. Exactly. Now I know why I wake up every day. It's not just responsibility, it's calling. Victoria envied Marcus's clarity of purpose. She was still discovering what she really wanted from life. What about you, Emma? What motivates you in consulting? The question caught Victoria off guard. I enjoy solving complex problems, but is there something bigger, some impact you want to make? Victoria couldn't answer. Her career had always been about meeting expectations, not making impact. I'm still figuring that out. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes it takes time to find our true calling. Marcus's understanding was comforting. How did you discover yours? By observing. I paid attention to what gave me energy versus what drained me. Caring for my grandmother drains me physically, but nourishes me emotionally. Working with spreadsheets drains me, but helping people with business energizes me. It was a simple but effective methodology. What if your grandmother, when she no longer needs care? Marcus understood what Victoria couldn't verbalize. When she passes, I'll feel enormous pain, but I'll also have learned so much about love, patience, and priorities. Those lessons will make me a better consultant. Marcus's emotional maturity was impressive. You're an admirable person, Marcus. Thank you, Emma. You're special too. How many people would stop to talk with a security guard about dreams and business? If he knew who she really was, he might think differently. Maybe I need this conversation more than you do. Why? Sometimes we lose perspective in the corporate world. Talking with you reminds me what really matters. I'm glad I can help somehow. Victoria stood up, realizing she needed to leave before emotion betrayed her. I should go, but can I come back tomorrow? Of course. I'll be here. Thank you for the conversation, Marcus. It was enlightening. For me, too. Good night, Emma. Victoria walked away from the security booth with her heart racing. With each conversation, Marcus revealed himself to be more extraordinary, and the lie about her identity weighed heavier on her conscience. During the walk back, she reflected on everything she had discovered. Marcus wasn't just a dreamer. He was a brilliant strategist disguised as a security guard. His ideas could revolutionize the consulting market, but he lacked resources to implement them. What if I could help him without revealing who I am? Victoria thought. The idea began taking shape in her mind. She had resources, connections, and knowledge of the corporate market. Marcus had creativity, authenticity, and an innovative approach. Together, they could create something extraordinary. But first, she needed to find a way to help him without raising suspicions about her true identity. Victoria arrived at the office the next morning with energy she hadn't felt in months. For the first time in years, she had a project that genuinely excited her. Jessica noticed the change immediately. You seem different today, more energized. I'm working on a new approach to our problems. What kind of approach? Victoria hesitated. How to explain without mentioning Marcus? I'm researching more accessible consulting models. Maybe we're targeting the wrong market. Jessica frowned. Wrong market? We've always worked with Fortune 500 companies. What if we expanded to small and medium businesses? Victoria, your father won't approve that. He's always said SME consulting isn't profitable. Maybe he's wrong. Jessica looked shocked. Victoria never questioned Richard publicly. Do you want me to research data on that market? I do. And Jessica, I need you to do this discreetly. Don't mention it to my father yet. Lee. Throughout the morning, Victoria pretended to work on traditional projects while her mind buzzed with Marcus's ideas. She began seeing Sterling and Associates with different eyes, an expensive, rigid company disconnected from real market needs. At 2 p.m., she made an impulsive decision. She left the office without telling anyone and headed to the neighborhood where Marcus worked. She wanted to meet the small businesses he had mentioned, see firsthand the potential he perceived. Tony's Deli was 2 blocks from the security booth. It was a simple establishment with a foggy glass display and a faded sign. The aroma of fresh bread and coffee escaped through the open door, creating a welcoming atmosphere that contrasted with the sterile environments of the offices Victoria frequented. "Good afternoon," she said, entering. A man in his 60s with a white apron and warm smile greeted her from behind the counter. "Good afternoon, miss. First time here?" "Yes. A friend recommended this place, said you make the best sandwiches in the area." Tony's eyes sparkled with pride. "Your friend has good taste. I've been making sandwiches for 30 years. What kind do you prefer?" Victoria looked at the variety of breads, pastries, and prepared foods. Everything seemed made with love and artisanal care. "Actually, I'd like to try whatever you recommend." "Then try the Italian combo with fresh mozzarella. It's my specialty." While Tony prepared the sandwich, Victoria observed the foot traffic. There were steady customers, but all seemed to be local residents. The expansion potential was evident. "Tony, how long have you had this deli?" "Opened 15 years ago, after I retired from construction. Always been my dream." "How's business?" "Can't complain. The neighbors are loyal, always people buying." "Ever thought about expanding? Maybe delivery or more variety?" Tony sighed. "Oh, miss, I'd love to. My wife makes incredible homemade pasta, and I know how to make paninis that would put the fancy places downtown to shame. But I don't understand any of this modern internet stuff. Delivery services." Victoria perceived exactly the problem Marcus had identified. Talent and desire existed, but technical and strategic knowledge was missing. "What if someone could help you with those issues?" "How do you mean?" "A consultant who understood small businesses, who could teach about marketing, organization, those things." Tony laughed. "Miss, consultants are for big companies. People like me don't have money for that. What if it was affordable? Or if you only paid when business improved?" "Now that would be interesting. You know someone like that?" Victoria smiled mysteriously. "Maybe. Could I come back if I know someone?" "Absolutely. Anything that helps the business grow." Victoria left the deli with a sense of discovery. Marcus was completely right. There was pent-up demand for accessible consulting, talented, hard-working people who just needed strategic guidance. She spent the rest of the afternoon visiting other establishments in the area. Joe's Coffee, Maria's Hair Salon, Mike's Auto Repair, all had the same characteristic: untapped potential due to lack of business knowledge. At 10 p.m., Victoria was back at the security booth, eager to share her discoveries with Marcus. "Emma, great to see you. How was your day?" "Eye-opening. I spent the afternoon getting to know local businesses." "Really? What did you think?" "You were right. There's so much untapped potential." Marcus perked up. "Did you talk to Tony?" "I did. He wants to expand but doesn't know how." "Exactly. He has talent, loyal customers, quality products. He just needs strategic direction." "Marcus, I have a proposal for you." "What kind of proposal?" Victoria took a deep breath. It was time to take the first step without revealing her identity. "What if you started your consulting practice informally with some small local clients?" "I've thought about it, but I have some practical problems." "What kind?" "First, I can't charge much because they don't have money. Second, I don't have an office or infrastructure. Third, I need to keep my current job." Victoria had anticipated these objections. "What if you had an angel investor, someone who would finance the initial costs?" Marcus looked at her with surprise. What kind of investor would be interested in a small consulting practice? Someone who believes in the SME market potential. Do you know someone like that? I know someone who might be interested. Really? How so? Victoria began constructing her story carefully. She's an executive who works in the sector. She has available capital and is looking for investment opportunities in innovative business models. Would she invest in my idea? Depends on the presentation. You'd have to show the model works in practice. Marcus was thoughtful. How would I do that? How about starting with 3 pilot clients? You'd apply your methodology for free, document the results, then present to the investor. That's an interesting idea. But how would I sustain this pilot phase? The investor could finance basic operational costs, materials, transportation, maybe a small stipend for you to dedicate some hours weekly to the project. Marcus's eyes began to light up. How much would be needed? Victoria did mental calculations. Would $3,000 a month for 3 months be enough? More than enough. With that amount, I could dedicate 20 hours weekly to the pilot project. Could you maintain your current job? Yes. I could use afternoons when my grandmother naps. Perfect. How about we prepare a proposal? You think she'd really be interested? I'm sure, but it needs to be a professional presentation showing methodology, timeline, success metrics. Marcus opened his notebook. I can start outlining right now. For the next hour, Victoria helped Marcus structure a detailed proposal. Her corporate experience combined with his creativity resulted in an impressive document. Done, Marcus said, showing his notes. Pilot project with 3 clients, 3-month duration, $9,000 total investment. Excellent. When could you present this to the investor? Whenever she wants. I can type it up at the library tomorrow. Great. I'll talk to her and schedule a meeting. Emma, how can I thank you? You're giving me an incredible opportunity. Marcus's genuine gratitude made Victoria feel both guilty and fulfilled. You don't need to thank me. I believe in your potential. But why are you doing this? You barely know me, Victoria had to improvise. Because I recognize talent when I see it. And because I believe the market needs people like you. I hope I don't disappoint. You won't. Over the following days, Victoria lived a schizophrenic double life. During the day, she pretended to work on Sterling and Associates' traditional projects while secretly preparing to invest in Marcus. At night, she met with him to refine proposal details. On Thursday, she created a false identity. Emma Collins, independent consultant and angel investor specializing in SMEs. She used a separate corporate phone and created a convincing professional email. Marcus, I managed to schedule the meeting. Really? When? Saturday morning at 10. She wants to meet at a neutral cafe. What's she like? Professional, direct, but fair. She values authenticity more than fancy presentations. I'm getting nervous just thinking about it. Don't be nervous. Be yourself. That's what she'll want to see. On Saturday morning, Victoria arrived at the chosen cafe 30 minutes early. She had selected a sophisticated but discreet location where she could play her role as a successful investor. She dressed carefully, an elegant but not flashy blazer, quality but discreet accessories, professional makeup. She needed to look prosperous without being ostentatious. Marcus arrived punctually at 10, wearing his best clothes, dark dress pants, carefully pressed white shirt, and a simple but elegant tie. He carried an old but well-maintained briefcase containing his presentation. Emma, you got here early. I wanted to secure a good table. Emma should arrive any minute. I'm nervous. Stay calm. Remember what we discussed. Be natural. Speak passionately about your project. 5 minutes later, Victoria stood up. I think that's her. I'll go greet her. She walked to the cafe entrance, pretended to talk on the phone for a few minutes, then returned to the table. Marcus, I have bad news. Emma had a family emergency and can't make it. Marcus's face fell. Really? Can we reschedule? Of course, but she asked me to evaluate your presentation preliminarily. If I approve, she'll invest without needing a face-to-face meeting. You do that. She trusts my judgment. We've been partners for years. Marcus took a deep breath. Then let's do this. For the next hour, Marcus presented his project with passion and competence that impressed Victoria. He had transformed his ideas into a structured, convincing proposal, complete with market analysis, detailed methodology, and realistic financial projections. Marcus, this presentation is exceptional. You think so? I was worried it might be too simple. Simplicity is a virtue. You identified a real market need and created a viable solution. Do you think Emma will approve? I'm certain. In fact, I can tell you the investment is approved. Marcus was silent for several seconds, processing the information. Really? She's going to invest in my project? Yes. 9,000 over 3 months, as per your proposal. Marcus covered his face with his hands, emotional. I can't believe it. This is going to change my life. Victoria felt intense emotion seeing his reaction. You deserve this opportunity. How does it work? When can I start? Starting Monday, you'll receive resources monthly upon progress reports. What about pilot clients? I suggest starting with Tony, Joe's Coffee, and one more you choose. Perfect. I know who the third will be. Maria's Hair Salon. Victoria smiled. Marcus had thought strategically. Deli, coffee shop, and salon covered different business profiles. Excellent choice. You'll have experience across diverse sectors. Emma, how can I thank you? You changed my life. By making your project successful, this investment will only be worthwhile if you achieve extraordinary results. You can be sure I'll give my best. In the following days, Victoria watched Marcus transform. He maintained his night job, but dedicated afternoons to the pilot project with contagious energy. The first client was, as predicted, Tony from the deli. Marcus began with complete diagnostics, cost analysis, competition study, customer research. Victoria discreetly followed progress, visiting establishments as a regular customer. Within 2 weeks, changes were already visible. The deli expanded its menu, including gourmet paninis for lunch and basic delivery service via WhatsApp. Revenue increased 25% in the first week. Joe's Coffee implemented the student happy hour Marcus had suggested, plus themed nights during weekdays. Foot traffic doubled on weekdays. Maria's Hair Salon created promotional packages and began offering at-home services for special occasions. Her appointment book filled completely, but the most impressive result was Marcus's own transformation. He discovered his true calling and flourished as a consultant. His human approach and practical methodology created growing fame in the region. Emma, the results are beyond my expectations, he told her in one of their nightly conversations. Tell me more. Marcus opened his notebook, now filled with new data and charts. Tony increased revenue 40% in 3 weeks. Joe is hiring another employee, and Maria already has a waiting list for weekends. Victoria smiled, genuinely proud. How are they reacting to the changes? That's the most rewarding part. They're not just making more money. They're rediscovering passion for their businesses. Tony told me yesterday he hadn't felt this fulfilled in years. What about your methodology? Is it working as planned? Even better, I'm refining the process with each client. I discovered emotional diagnosis is as important as financial. Emotional diagnosis? Marcus leaned forward, excited to explain. I realize many small entrepreneurs are demoralized, feel too small to dream big. Part of my job is restoring business self-esteem. Victoria was impressed with the analysis's sophistication. How do you do that in practice? I start by showing similar success stories, then help them see their business's unique potential. For example, Maria thought she was just another salon. Now she sees herself as a beauty specialist for special occasions. That's psychology applied to business. Exactly. People buy from those who believe in their own product. If the owner doesn't believe, how can they convince customers? Victoria had never considered this psychological dimension of business consulting. Marcus, you're developing a revolutionary approach. You think so? Sometimes I feel like I'm reinventing the wheel. No, you're creating something unique. Most consultants focus only on numbers. You work with the human being behind the business. Marcus's eyes lit up. That's it. You can't separate the person from the company, especially in small businesses. How's your grandmother? Can you balance everything? Marcus's face softened. She's having more good days. Yesterday, she helped me organize client reports. It's like the project's positive energy is affecting her too. That's wonderful. And you know what's most incredible? She remembers client stories, asks about Tony, about his new recipes. It's like the project gave her new purpose too. Victoria felt tears welling up. Marcus's dedication to his grandmother remained touching. How does she react when you tell her about work? She gets proud. Yesterday she said, "My grandson was always special. Now the world is discovering it. It was one of the most emotional moments of my life." She's right, you are special. Marcus blushed slightly. Thank you, Emma. Without your help, none of this would have happened. Guilt squeezed Victoria's stomach again. If he knew who she really was. Marcus, can I ask you a personal question? Of course. How do you see me? What's your impression of me? The question caught Marcus off guard. How do you mean? I don't know. What do you think about me as a person? Marcus was thoughtful for several seconds. You're an interesting person, Emma. You have refined education, know the corporate world, but aren't arrogant. You're generous. You helped me without really knowing me. And you're an exceptional listener. Victoria felt her heart accelerate. Anything else? Sometimes I get the impression you're running from something, or searching for something. I can't explain it well. The observation was disturbingly accurate. Why do you think that? It's intuition. You ask deep questions about life purpose, work meaning, like you're questioning your own choices. Victoria remained silent, impressed by Marcus's perception. Maybe you're right. Want to talk about it? Victoria almost confessed everything at that moment. The temptation to be honest was almost irresistible. It's complicated, family issues, professional. I understand. If you want to talk, I'll be here. Marcus's kindness made Victoria feel even worse about the lie. Thank you. You're a special friend. For me too. How long since I talked with someone about important things? Victoria realized she had never had such deep conversations with anyone. It's rare to find genuine people. True, most are always playing a role, trying to impress or get something. The irony of the statement hit Victoria like a stab. What about you? Don't you ever play a role? I try not to. Life's complicated enough without pretending to be someone I'm not. Victoria wanted to disappear. That's an admirable philosophy. It's necessary. When you care for someone with Alzheimer's, you learn honesty is precious. In her lucid moments, I want her to see who I really am. Marcus's authentic dedication contrasted painfully with the farce Victoria was living. Marcus, I need to tell you something. What? Victoria almost confessed, but lost courage at the last second. Emma, the investor, wants to do an in-person evaluation of the project next week. Really? She's coming here? Yes. She wants to meet the clients, see results up close. I'm getting nervous. What if she doesn't like what she sees? She'll love it. Results speak for themselves. Will you be there? Of course. I'm the intermediary between you two. Marcus seemed relieved. Good. Your presence gives me confidence. Victoria felt terrible. She was deceiving a man who completely trusted her. Marcus, if you discovered someone lied to you, but with good intentions, how would you react? Depends on the type of lie and the intention. A lie about identity, but to help that person realize dreams. Marcus was thoughtful. It's complicated. On one hand, intention matters. On the other, trust is fundamental in any relationship. What if the person confessed the truth? That would depend on how the confession was made, with sincerity and regret, or only when convenient. Victoria swallowed hard. Hypothetically, of course. Of course, Marcus smiled. But honestly, I value the courage to confess more than the perfection of never making mistakes. The answer gave Victoria hope. That's a mature perspective. Life taught me everyone makes mistakes. What defines character is how we deal with those mistakes. Victoria decided she would confess everything after the investor's visit. First, she'd let Marcus consolidate his success, then reveal the truth. I need to leave early today. Family matters. Everything okay with your family? My father wants to talk about work, always complicated. Parents can be difficult. Mine was very strict, always demanding results. How did you resolve that? He died before we could resolve it, Marcus said sadly. One of my biggest regrets. Victoria felt tightness in her chest, thinking about her difficult relationship with Richard. I'm sorry. Thanks. That's why I value time with my grandmother so much, even with the disease. I don't want more regrets. That's wise. What about you? How's your relationship with your father? Complicated. He has very high expectations about your career, about everything. He built something important and expects me to continue his legacy. Do you want to continue? Victoria hesitated. I don't know anymore. Talking with you, questioning so many things, sometimes I think I'm in the wrong profession. What would you do if you could choose freely? Maybe something like what you're doing, consulting with purpose, really helping people. Nothing stopping you from changing course. It's not that simple. There are responsibilities, expectations. Emma, can I give you advice? Of course. Life goes by very fast. If you're not happy with your choices, change while you still can. Regret is a terrible weight to carry. Marcus's words echoed in Victoria's mind throughout the walk back to the office. The following Monday, she crafted a detailed plan for the Emma the Investor visit. It would be a complex performance, but necessary to consolidate Marcus's success. She created a schedule of visits to the 3 pilot clients, prepared convincing corporate documents, and even rehearsed her role as a serious but visionary investor. Marcus, Emma confirmed the visit for Thursday. I'm anxious and nervous at the same time. Are the clients prepared? Yes, they're proud of results and excited to show progress. Perfect. Remember, be natural. Let the numbers speak. Emma, can I ask you a personal question? Sure. Do you have a boyfriend, husband? The question caught Victoria off guard. Why do you ask? Curiosity. You're an interesting, intelligent, beautiful woman. You must have many suitors. Victoria felt her face heat up. Relationships are complicated for me. Why? People usually are interested for the wrong reasons. What kind of reasons? Status, money, connections, rarely for who I really am. Marcus looked at her intensely. What kind of person are you really? The question was too direct. Victoria felt exposed. I'm still figuring that out. From what I see here, you're generous, intelligent, and genuinely care about other people. Any man would be lucky to have you. Victoria felt butterflies in her stomach. Thank you. It means a lot coming from you. Why specifically from me? Because you see people beyond appearances. True. I learned what really matters isn't on the surface. The moment was becoming too intimate. Victoria needed to pull back. What about you? Since your engagement ended, haven't you been interested in anyone? Marcus hesitated. I haven't had time for relationships, between work, studies, and caring for my grandmother. But if you had time, I'd be selective. I'd look for someone who understood my priorities, who valued substance over surface. What kind of woman would that be? Intelligent, independent, but with sensitivity to understand family comes first. And who had her own dreams and purposes. The description sounded like he was speaking directly to Victoria. That's a specific profile. I'd rather be alone than in an incompatible relationship. Victoria wondered if she could be compatible with Marcus, if he knew who she really was. That's a mature approach. My experience with my ex-fiancé taught me to be more discerning, understandable. A comfortable silence settled between them. Victoria realized she was developing feelings for Marcus, feelings that complicated the lie situation even more. "Emma, can I make a confession?" "Of course." "These nightly conversations have become the best part of my days." Victoria felt her heart race. "For me too. It's comforting to have someone who understands, who really cares." "Marcus?" "Yes?" Victoria almost confessed everything at that moment, but once again lost courage. "I also value our friendship very much." "Friendship?" Marcus repeated, as if testing the word. "That's what we are, right?" "Yes, of course. Friends." But there was something in his tone suggesting both felt there was more than friendship blooming between them. Victoria said goodbye that night with a confused heart. She was falling in love with a man who didn't know who she really was, and in a few days she'd have to stage the most elaborate farce of her life. "What am I doing?" she murmured to herself on the way back, but she knew the answer. She was living authentically for the first time, even though based on a lie, and that scared her as much as it thrilled her. Thursday arrived loaded with tension and expectation. Victoria woke at 5 in the morning with her stomach in knots and her heart racing. The day of the grand performance had arrived, but something fundamental had changed. She no longer wanted to lie to Marcus. Over the past weeks, the feelings they harbored for each other had become undeniable. Their nightly conversations had evolved from professional exchanges to personal confessions, from mutual admiration to something much deeper. Victoria had fallen hopelessly in love with the gentle, determined and principled man she had met while disguised. At 9 a.m., she was at the first stop on the schedule, Tony's Deli. The establishment had transformed completely. New display cases showcased gourmet paninis, a small cafe area had been created, and a colorful menu advertised delivery service. Foot traffic was constant, mixing long-time customers with new consumers attracted by the modernization. "Miss Emma," exclaimed Tony upon seeing her, "what an honor to have you here." Marcus had prepared his clients well for the investor's visit. Victoria wore an elegant executive outfit, carried an Italian leather briefcase, and assumed the professional posture she knew so well. "Tony, it's a pleasure to meet you personally. Marcus spoke highly of your dedication." "The kid's an angel, Miss Emma. He completely changed my life." For 40 minutes, Victoria listened enthusiastically to growth reports. Revenue had increased 60% in 4 weeks. 2 new jobs had been created, and most impressively, Tony had rediscovered his passion for business. "What moves me most," said the deli owner with shining eyes, "is seeing my wife proud of her pasta appearing on the delivery menu. Yesterday, a customer praised her lasagna so much she cried with joy." Victoria felt a lump in her throat. Marcus's work wasn't just transforming numbers. It was restoring dreams and self-esteem. The second stop was Joe's Coffee. The atmosphere, previously frequented only by solitary coffee drinkers, had transformed into a lively meeting point. College students occupied tables playing chess, young couples shared pastries, and a sense of community filled the air. "Miss Emma," said Joe with a proud smile, "before I was thinking about closing. Now I'm thinking about expanding." Revenue had tripled on weekdays. More importantly, Joe had rediscovered the pleasure of being a host, creating a space where people felt welcome. The third visit was to Maria's hair salon. The place was unrecognizable. Packed schedule, 2 new employees, and a professional but welcoming environment. Maria, previously shy and insecure, spoke confidently about expansion and new services. "Marcus taught me I'm not just another salon," she explained to Victoria. "I'm a beauty specialist for special occasions. It completely changed how I see my work." At the end of the visits, Victoria was genuinely moved. The pilot project wasn't just successful, it was a small-scale revolution. Marcus had created methodology that transformed not just businesses, but lives. "So, Emma, what did you think?" Marcus asked anxiously when they met at the cafe. Victoria looked at this extraordinary man, simple but impeccable clothes, eyes shining with expectation, worn notebook full of dreams and strategies, and knew she couldn't continue lying. "Marcus, I need to tell you something important. About the project? Weren't the results good enough?" "The results were spectacular, but it's not about that." Victoria took a deep breath, preparing for the most difficult moment of her life. "Marcus, Emma Collins doesn't exist." "What do you mean?" "The investor is me." Marcus stared at her, confused. "I don't understand." "My real name is Victoria Sterling. I'm CEO of Sterling and Associates, one of the biggest consulting firms in the country. I invented the investor story because I wanted to help you without revealing my identity." Marcus's face went through a succession of expressions: confusion, shock, understanding, and finally, pain. "You lied about who you were this whole time." "Yes." "Why?" Victoria felt tears in her eyes. "Initially, it was protective instinct. I was in crisis, walking disguised to escape pressure. When I met you, I didn't want to be judged by my social position. And afterward, when we started talking about business, about dreams, then the lie became more complex. I was learning so much from you, discovering a completely new way of seeing consulting. I didn't want that to change if you knew who I was." Marcus stood from the table, paced a few steps before turning back to her. "And the investment? The money was yours?" "Yes, every penny." "Why, Victoria? Why did you do this?" "Because I believe in you, because your talent is extraordinary and deserved an opportunity." "But based on lies." The pain in Marcus's voice broke Victoria's heart. "I know there's no excuse, but my feelings were real. Everything I said about admiring your work, about believing in your potential, that was real." "And Emma Collins, who was she?" "She was who I wished I could be, a simpler, more honest version of myself." Marcus returned to the table but didn't sit. "Do you have any idea how I feel? I thought I'd found a true friend. Someone who cared about me for who I am. I discover it was all, what, charity, entertainment?" "No," Victoria shouted, standing as well. "It wasn't charity or entertainment. I fell in love with you." The silence that followed was deafening. Other people in the cafe looked curiously at them. "Fell in love," Marcus whispered. "Yes, every conversation, every brilliant idea of yours, every gesture of dedication to your grandmother. I fell in love with the extraordinary person you are. But you lied about who you were. I lied about my name and profession. I never lied about my feelings." Marcus sat down again, covering his face with his hands. "I need to process this. It's too much information." Victoria sat on the edge of her chair, desperate. "Marcus, please, I know I broke your trust, but what we built together is real. Your results are real. Your talent is real. And what I feel for you is also real. How can I be sure? If you lied about something as basic as your name, how do I know what else is a lie? Because I'm confessing voluntarily. I could have continued the charade, but I couldn't take it anymore." Marcus looked at her intensely. "Why confess now?" "Because I can't pretend anymore. Because you deserve the truth. And because—" She hesitated. "Because what?" "Because I want a real chance with you, not based on lies, but on truth." Marcus remained silent for long minutes. Victoria waited, heart pounding. "Victoria, do you have any idea about the difference in our worlds?" "It doesn't matter." "It does matter. You're a billionaire heiress, CEO of a major company. I'm a night security guard who takes care of his sick grandmother. So what? You're the most principled, intelligent, and courageous man I've ever met. But we built our connection on a lie." Victoria felt tears streaming down her face. "Marcus, I know I made a terrible mistake, but please don't throw away what we have because of how it started. I need time to think." "How much time?" "I don't know. It's a lot to process." Victoria pulled a business card from her briefcase. "This is my real card. Real number, real address. If you decide to give me a chance, call me." Marcus took the card, read it, and put it in his pocket. "What about the project? The investment?" Continue. The money is yours. No strings attached. You deserve it. I don't know if I can accept it. Marcus, don't punish the people you're helping because of my mistake. Tony, Joe, Maria, they need you. Marcus sighed deeply. You're right. It wouldn't be fair to them. Victoria stood to leave. Marcus? Yeah, I'm truly sorry. He didn't respond. Victoria left the cafe with her heart shattered, but also with a strange sense of relief. For the first time in weeks, she was being completely honest. 6 months after that heartbreak in the cafe, the ballroom of the Plaza Hotel buzzed with anticipation as Victoria and Marcus officially launched the Elevate Sterling program, a revolutionary division of Sterling and Associates dedicated exclusively to small and medium enterprises, featuring an innovative results-based fee structure. Victoria, elegant in a navy Valentino suit, looked out at the audience with renewed confidence radiating from her core. Ladies and gentlemen, this program was born from a simple but powerful realization. There are thousands of talented entrepreneurs who only need proper strategic guidance and fair investment models. In the third row, Marcus watched the presentation with admiration. He wore a charcoal grey Tom Ford suit, carried a new leather portfolio, and on his lapel gleamed a pin. Director of Methodology, Elevate Program. Our differentiator, Victoria continued, lies in our humanized approach, understanding that behind every business is a person with dreams and aspirations. Our methodology director, Marcus Thompson, has developed innovative processes that have already transformed over 400 small businesses across New York. Marcus smiled discreetly. The past months had been an emotional roller coaster, but also extraordinary growth. After 2 tense weeks of reflection following the confession, he had decided not only to forgive Victoria, but also to join her in building something far greater than either had initially imagined. The first meeting after the confession had been tense, but hopeful. Marcus demanded complete transparency, knowing the real Victoria, her family, her fears, her deepest vulnerabilities. In exchange, he opened his life completely, introduced her to Eleanor, shared his most intimate insecurities, showed her his modest Brooklyn apartment. The relationship that blossomed was careful but deep, based on absolute honesty. Victoria learned to cook traditional comfort foods to help care for Eleanor, who in her lucid moments enthusiastically approved of her future granddaughter-in-law. Marcus discovered he could love a powerful woman without feeling diminished or threatened. True love, he had reflected one evening while cooking together, isn't about equality of financial conditions. It's about equality in respect, admiration, and mutual growth. After the presentation, Victoria and Marcus met in their shared office, a space that perfectly reflected their partnership. The walls maintained corporate elegance, but incorporated personal touches, photographs of clients they'd helped, a small bookshelf with used business management books, and in the corner, a vase with sunflowers that Eleanor sent weekly. "How do you feel?" Marcus asked, embracing Victoria from behind. "Fulfilled for the first time in my adult life, even with your father still resisting the idea." Richard Sterling had needed months to accept both the romantic relationship and the new business division. Victoria's transformation had initially bewildered him. She had become more assertive, more passionate about work, more human in her interactions. He's starting to understand. The financial results definitely help. What about the other partners? Victoria smiled with satisfaction. The Elevate program wasn't just extraordinarily profitable, it was changing the entire corporate culture at Sterling and Associates. Young employees requested transfers to the new division, major clients praised the innovative approach, and competitors desperately tried to copy their methodology without success. It's working far better than we initially dreamed. Our dreams, Marcus repeated, kissing her neck softly. I love the sound of that. Victoria turned in his arms. Marcus, can I ask you something? Always. Have you completely forgiven me? Do you hold any resentment about the initial lie? Marcus held her face in his hands with infinite tenderness. Victoria, that lie led us exactly here. If you had introduced yourself as a billionaire CEO that first night, I probably would have been respectful but distant. We never would have developed this deep connection. But it was still wrong to lie. It was wrong, yes, but it was also necessary for both of us to discover who we really are. And who are we? Two imperfect people who complement each other wonderfully. You taught me it's possible to dream bigger than I ever imagined. I taught you that success without genuine purpose is completely empty. Victoria kissed him softly. I love you, Marcus Thompson. I love you, Victoria Sterling. Outside the building, Manhattan continued its usual frenetic pace. But inside, two people had found something extraordinarily rare. Love based on mutual admiration, joint growth, and shared purpose that transcended their social differences. In Marcus's pocket, his phone buzzed. It was Eleanor, in one of her increasingly frequent lucid moments. Grandson, when are you going to propose? I've already chosen the wedding cake recipe. Victoria heard the question and laughed tenderly. Tell your grandmother we're working on that. We are, Marcus asked with a mischievous smile. We absolutely are. The success of the Elevate program had exceeded all initial expectations. In 6 months, they had served over 400 small business owners with a 94% success rate. More importantly, they had created over 1,500 indirect jobs and revitalized entire neighborhoods throughout New York. Marcus's methodology, refined with Victoria's resources and experience, had proven replicable and scalable. They already had expansion plans for Chicago, Los Angeles, and Miami for the following year. But beyond professional success, what filled them with most satisfaction was the human impact of their work. Stories like Tony, who had opened a second deli location, Joe, who had turned his coffee shop into a successful franchise, and Maria, who now managed a chain of 3 salons. You know what's most beautiful about all this? Victoria reflected one afternoon while reviewing quarterly reports. What? It started with a flashlight in the darkness. You, studying with that little light, illuminating not just your books, but the dreams of an entire community. Marcus looked at her with those brown eyes that had captivated her from the first moment. And you, lost in your own golden labyrinth, found the courage to remove your masks and be authentic. Do you think we would have gotten here any other way? I don't think so. Sometimes lies are necessary to reach deeper truths. That night, while dining in the apartment they now shared, a space combining discreet elegance with homey warmth, Marcus took Victoria's hand across the table. Victoria, these months with you have been the most intense and beautiful of my life. For me too. We've built something extraordinary together, not just professionally, but as a couple. Victoria felt her pulse quicken. Where was Marcus heading with this? We've proven love can overcome social differences, that honesty can repair broken trust, that two people can create something greater than the sum of their parts. Marcus stood from his chair and, to Victoria's surprise, knelt beside her. Victoria Sterling, will you marry me? From his pocket he produced a simple but beautiful ring, a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds. Victoria covered her mouth with her hands, moved to tears. Yes, of course, yes. Marcus slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her with all the passion accumulated from those months of growth and mutual discovery. How did you know it was the right time? She asked, admiring the ring. My grandmother told me this morning during one of her good days. She said, son, when you find a woman who makes you want to be a better person every day, don't let her escape. Your grandmother is very wise. She is, and she's very excited about the wedding. She's already started planning the menu. They laughed together, imagining Eleanor organizing every detail of the celebration. The wedding was held 6 months later at a rustic estate in the Hamptons. It was an intimate but joyful ceremony that perfectly reflected the couple's personality. elegant but accessible, traditional but innovative. Eleanor, on one of her best days in months, walked proudly alongside her grandson toward the altar. Richard, initially reluctant, had come to genuinely appreciate Marcus and welcomed him into the family with open arms. The guests included all the small business owners who had been transformed by the program. Tony provided a spectacular wedding cake. Joe organized the coffee service, and Maria handled hairstyling for all the women in the family. During the ceremony, while exchanging vows they had written personally, Victoria looked into Marcus's eyes and saw their entire future together reflected. "Marcus," she said with clear, emotional voice, "you taught me that true success isn't measured in bank figures, but in transformed lives. You taught me that honesty is more valuable than any wealth. I promise to be your partner in all dreams, your support in all difficulties, and your love for all life." Marcus, with voice broken by emotion, responded, "Victoria, you came into my life like light in darkness. You taught me it's possible to dream bigger than I ever imagined. You taught me that true love knows no social barriers. I promise to care for you, respect you, and build with you the most beautiful future possible." When the judge declared them husband and wife, applause resonated throughout the estate. But more than a celebration, it was recognition they had achieved something extraordinary, authentic love, born from overcoming obstacles and building trust. The reception continued until late hours, with jazz music, improvised dancing, and emotional speeches. Tony toasted, "To the couple who taught us dreams can come true." Joe raised his glass, "For proving true love exists." Maria, with tears in her eyes, declared they had restored faith in humanity. But the most emotional moment came when Eleanor, leaning on her walking stick, approached the microphone to address the newlyweds. "My grandson was always special," she said with trembling but clear voice. But Victoria helped him discover exactly how special. Together they've created something beautiful, not just for themselves, but for our entire community. May God bless them with many years of happiness. As night progressed and guests began departing, Victoria and Marcus found themselves alone in the estate garden, under a starry sky that seemed to bless their union. "Do you regret anything?" Marcus asked, holding her around the waist. "Only one thing," Victoria replied with a mischievous smile. "What?" "Taking so long to be honest with you. Perfect timing doesn't exist. Things happen when they're meant to happen. What comes next? Now we build the rest of our lives together. Expand, elevate across America, care for my grandmother, maybe have children who inherit our love for helping others." "I like that plan." "You know what's most incredible about everything?" "What?" "It all started with a lie and became the most beautiful truth of our lives." Victoria stood on tiptoes to kiss him under the stars. "I love you, my husband. I love you, my wife." 1 year after the wedding, Sterling and Associates had expanded the Elevate program to 12 American cities. Marcus had been recognized as Social Entrepreneur of the Year by the New York Chamber of Commerce, and Victoria had received the Innovative Executive Award from the National Association of Women Business Leaders. But more important than any external recognition was what they had built together. A solid marriage based on mutual respect, a company with social purpose, and a network of prosperous small entrepreneurs that had spread across the entire American geography. Eleanor, with top-quality medical care they could now easily afford, had experienced notable improvement in her condition. Good days were increasingly frequent, and she had begun actively helping in the office, organizing files and greeting clients with her natural charisma. One spring afternoon, while reviewing international expansion plans, Victoria placed her hand over Marcus's. "I have news." "What kind of news?" "The kind that's going to change our lives forever." Marcus looked at her with growing curiosity. "Victoria?" She smiled with a mixture of nervousness and pure emotion. "We're expecting a baby." Marcus's face lit up as if he had won every lottery in the world. "Really? We're going to be parents." We're going to be parents. They embraced with intensity that contained all the happiness accumulated from those years of growth, overcome challenges, and love built day by day. How do you think your grandmother will take it? Victoria asked. She's going to be ecstatic. She's been asking me for months when we were going to give her great-grandchildren. That night when they told Eleanor the news, the elderly woman cried with joy. "A great-grandchild," she exclaimed. "I have to live long enough to teach them how to make cookies like their great-great-grandmother." 9 months later, Emma Sterling Thompson was born, a girl with her father's brown eyes and her mother's determination. Eleanor, on one of her most lucid days in years, held her in her arms and whispered, "Little one, you're going to grow up in a family that understands true love and purposeful work are the only riches that really matter." 5 years after that first nighttime encounter, beside a security booth, illuminated by a humble flashlight, Victoria and Marcus had built not only a business empire with social purpose, but also a family full of love and a transformed community. The Elevate program had expanded to 15 countries, created over 60,000 jobs, and was studied at universities worldwide as a model of socially responsible consulting. But beyond all professional successes, what really mattered was what they had discovered together: that authentic love can overcome any obstacle, that honesty is the foundation of any lasting relationship, and that the most beautiful dreams are built between two people willing to grow together. One evening, while Emma slept peacefully in her crib and Eleanor rested in her room, Victoria and Marcus sat on their apartment balcony, watching Manhattan's lights stretching to the horizon. "Did you ever imagine everything would lead to this?" Victoria asked, snuggling against her husband's shoulder. "Never. When I studied with that flashlight, I dreamed of helping some neighbors. I never imagined I'd end up married to the most incredible woman in the world and changing lives across the planet. You know what's most beautiful? What? It all started with the courage of two people. You, who had the courage to dream big despite circumstances, and me, who had the courage to remove my masks and be vulnerable. And here we are. Here we are." They kissed under Manhattan's stars, the same celestial bodies that had witnessed their first meeting, their first lie, their first truth, and all the beautiful truths they had built together since then. And it all began with a flashlight in the dawn and the courage of two hearts willing to risk everything for true love. Thanks for joining us in this beautiful story of love, overcoming obstacles, and second chances. If it moved you, please leave a comment telling us which part you liked most, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that will make you believe in true love. Until next time.